All right, so apparently first trailer for WandaVision, the Disney Plus series about Wanda, aka Scarlet Witch, and Vision. So this is one of those things where I've been very curious, like, what is this even gonna be? I think more so than any other of the Marvel Disney Plus planned projects. So like Falcon and Winter Soldier, I feel like I at least have an idea of what that's most likely to be. The what if, that's just gonna be nuts. But like this, I had no idea. I had a couple of general possibilities of what it might be, given what I know about Wanda and Vision's relationships in the comics, but I didn't know how much they were going to pull for that. So let's take a look at this trailer and get a sense of what we've actually got. Okay, so we're going to lean into the 1950s thing hard.
Wanda and Vision. Oh, we have 5 paths.
This is our home now. I want us to fit in.
I like that it's in 3x4.
Where did you two move from? How long have you been married? And why don't you have children yet? Our story.
I think what my wife means to say is that we moved from where?
I'm glad they didn't put Paul Bettany in the makeup for the whole time. Ooh.
Oh, Arthur, stop it.
Oh dear.
Stop it. Stop it. Stop it.
Oh, and now it starts cracking.
This is really happening.
Okay, so... What the?
No. Why would you think that?
Because you are.
Ooh. Okay.
We are an unusual couple, you know.
Oh, I don't think that was ever in question.
No, it wasn't. Okay. So, I'm still confused, and I'm not entirely sure what this is, but like in a good way. I like getting a sense of something like, ooh, I haven't seen that before, and it's unusual. I don't know entirely what to make of it. That excites me. So, like, my first big question is, how much, if any, of this is going to be quote-unquote real? And I feel like that's a trap they might fall into. What I mean by that is, given that this seems to be based around, well, maybe not this literally, but like however they are choosing to justify the equivalent of what would have been in the comics Wanda's reality-bending powers. So, like, there's been speculation among the fans that what this is basically going to be is Wanda kind of snapping and creating this, maybe in her own head, maybe in the real world, who knows, this altered ideal reality for herself and Vision, because she can't have that now because he's dead, as was noted. So part of me wonders how much of it is going to be in that and how much of it is going to actually directly reflect and bring us into the quote-unquote real world. And I hope it does that as little as possible, because I would rather see them explore the connections between these characters, the damage that they have suffered, and the ways in which they're trying to cope and whether or not it's working, rather than like cut to, people standing over Wanda in a coma or something. And that not that we had an image of that specifically, but like that's what I don't want. That it's one of those cases where do the deep dive into the mind palace. I don't care what's going on in reality so much, because like that's where all the interesting stuff is. So that's my sort of initial thought on it. I'm not sure I have a ton more to say. Part of me is curious if that black and white thing is something that was done more or less strictly for the trailer, if it's something that'll only be in the first episode, if it's something maybe they'll loop back to, if it's like almost like a hard reset that Wanda does every time things start not working out again. It's like, okay, go back to 1, and then maybe we'll try and go from there. Because it's very clear that whatever's going on, Wanda doesn't have total control over it. With the way these people who were sitting with them at dinner were reacting and be like, where did you move from? Ah! And this guy starts over. So whatever's going on, she does not have total control over it, even if she ends up being the cause of it, which I expect in some way she'll end up being. The movies have been very vague on what her powers are. Now, they've had them be have this red motif, which is similar to the ether from Thor: The Dark World, the one nobody likes. But that was the reality gem. So I don't know if they were trying to visually cue that she is, in fact, doing some sort of reality bending, for lack of a better way to put it. But they've never really delved into that concept up to this point. Up to this point, her powers, while not particularly well defined, were coming across more like some form of largely telekinesis. She could lift herself. She made Vision way more that time. She could, kind of twist people's arms around. She could mess with heads. So she was honestly coming across, in terms of a power set, a bit more like Jean Grey, telekinetic telepath sort of thing. But then again, like I said, they have not ever really rigidly defined exactly what it is she can do and what it is that she is doing in order to create. Like, we see the effect of what she does. We don't know how she's doing it, or the nature of it, or the rules, if any, if they do exist. So that was smart in terms of giving them a fair amount of leeway to basically decide that her powers are whatever they want them to be, which is also pretty much what the comics have done. The comics are very much a case of, well, what do we want her to do? Because we can decide she can do basically whatever the heck we want. We just have to justify why she would do it, which is why the comics have a tendency to have her go crazy for at least short bouts, just so that they can have her screw up everything. And I'm oddly comforted by the fact that this is a Disney Plus show, because to me that means if they're going to play with this idea of Wanda has kind of snapped and is causing reality weirdness or a reality bubble or whatever, that it is isolated to the Disney Plus TV shows. Because I don't know if people have been speculating this, but let's be really clear about something. Even though the Marvel shows are now on Disney Plus as opposed to Netflix, I mean, not the same shows, obviously, but the same rules are ultimately going to apply. The movies will affect the shows will not affect the movies. Even though Disney itself and Disney Marvel has direct control over all of it, they're still not going to do that. They are not going to have any more than a token nod towards anything that happened in the TV shows in the movies. And that will always be the case, because way more people go to the movies than watch the TV show. They will not ever have something go on in the TV show that is going to have massive reverberating effects in the films, or that the films don't make sense unless you've seen the show. They won't ever do that. So for me, and I feel very comfortable in that assessment. So with that in mind, whatever they do here, to me, this is the safe side playground to pull a Wanda does reality weirdness thing, because using that element of her character in the movies does, unfortunately, largely because those movies have never been about her. She's just been taking part in them. Trying to introduce that level of reality weirdness for her stuff in the movies really would run the risk of her just being a plot device or a Deus Ex Machina, take your pick. So, which is unfortunately, again, kind of something that's happened to her more than a few times in the comics, where ultimately her role in a story boils down to, well, we needed to either create this scenario and this was the only way we could think to do it, or we needed to fix this scenario and this is the only way we could think to do it, sometimes both in the same story. So setting it off to the side as its own Disney Plus show, you know what? Go nuts. I want them to go nuts. And I was very comforted by even the moments that felt real world-ish. Like when I saw Vision outside and not in this stylized home and in the full outfit that we're used to seeing him in, a part of me went, oh. But then he touches this woman in this car and she's like, am I dead? No, why would you think that? Well, because you are. I'm like, okay. So even this thing that looks like the real world, something's still wrong. Good. I think that's what I mean really heavily when I say I don't want to see the real world. I want to be in the world where something's still wrong. And I want to dwell in that. I want to come to understand it. And at the very end, sure, let's go to the real world, but not during the run of it. I just want to dwell in the weirdness. So I like what I see. The question is, how much of a percentage of the final product is what I'm seeing in this trailer. That might be the make or break, because if it ends up being like a 50-50 split, that's going to annoy me. I want the weirdness to be the clear majority of whatever it is we get. But WandaVision trailer, you've seen it. What'd you think about it? Well, of course you've seen it. At the very least, you saw my reaction to it. So whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Usual stuff, like, share, subscribe. I have a Patreon. There's a link to that in the description. That helps me out. It is actually what pays my bills. I'm doing this professionally now, technically. This is nuts. But, no pressure either, because we like to take a relaxed attitude around here. So just come on back next time you need a break.